Hey y'all, back with a new video, but in this video I will not be shown live due to privacy reasons. So we're going to talk about something that's very sensitive, so I'm going to put a trigger warning, hence why I don't want to show my face and whatnot, because I don't want this video to get thrown away, because I really believe that we have to talk about it, especially amongst us men. And because this channel is dedicated to exposing the truth and exposing the lies and uncovering all these things about narcissistic abuse, dark triad personalities, talking about abuse, talking about healing, exposing narcissism, sociopathy, psychopathy, Machiavellianism, and just a very deep dive into everything that we're talking about. I think it has to be a fair place that as many people, especially women, talk about, them being sexually molested when they were, little girls by older men. I think it's also very appropriate for us men to come forward and to talk about the fact that most of us have also been sexually molested by other women when we were little boys. And we don't actually really talk about that, because anything regarding to something personal or emotional gets suppressed immediately by other men, even though we can see the effects and the results carrying out every single day in our behavior through the way that we think, through the way that we act, through the way that we, interact with the world and our relationships. And if there's one thing that we don't actually talk enough about, is the fact that a lot of men have been victims of sexual abuse by other women, primarily their own mothers. There's a motorcycle, wait. So I want to open this discussion, and I'm, not filtering the comments and whatnot, and I want people to be as honest as they can, because I want to open this discussion, because this is something that I have experienced, sadly, that I've also been sexually molested by women in the family, especially my mother. Just say it out loud like that, because it has already been reported. I went through EMDR therapy for that, and it was I have to say, it's very shameful to even admit that, because at that point in time I was 7, 8, 9, and all the way until 18. And here's the thing: if you, like I mentioned in my previous video about being neurodivergent and having a handicap, if you have these things, you don't tend to clock things immediately the way that they are, but your body keeps tracking scores and knows what's right and what's wrong. I never want to be touched by my mother, because she's nasty. She's nasty. And I have experienced these things when I was a child, and my abusive father went away. Because if there's one thing that narcissistic women will do, is they will, I want to call it, parentify their sons because their husbands are away cheating with another woman. And my mother did it to me, and I was a child, and I thought it was very strange and odd. And she immediately told me that because she is my mother, she made my body, so she had the right to actually do it. And if you listen to that sentence right now as an adult, you're thinking like, that's the most disturbing thing I've ever heard in my life. But if you're 6, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, and it happens consistently, eventually over time, you always also start to think that, maybe it's normal, maybe I'm overreacting. And you just assume that, other men experience the same thing like you, and that there's something, that's something normal, and that's not actually something that you should actually make an entire fuss about. Until you start to notice that it changes your sexuality. Because I don't think your sexual orientation can change, But I do think that the lens and the scope within the range of fetishes and turn-ons and sexual attraction in general can be, how can I say this, influenced by earlier encounters in your childhood. Because we know that a lot of fetishes that we speak about, talk about, and we know about are actually derived from abuse. BDSM abuse, but why else do you think it's BDSM, DSM-5 case of mental illnesses? See, like you gotta read into things. You gotta read into things. And it wasn't until I turned 18 and exhibited all these weird, characteristics of being molested at a young age and being, very sexually provocative and whatnot and seductive and trying to seduce older people. Because mind you, I have older parents. My parents had me when they were almost 40. And what I mean almost 40, like a few months before they turned 40. So the moment you get older, you tend to, I don't know why, gravitate towards older people and want to also interact sexually with older people. Because that's all you know. And being called a womanizer when you are 17, 18, 19 by older women, I had some guy friends who were like, well, that's something positive. That's something positive because here's the thing, women like you. Women like you. Well, actually not, because these are older women who are inappropriately touching me and whatnot. And it's actually not good to be wanted by people twice your age and they're not attractive at all. But not saying that attraction will justify all these things. It's just not good at that age to be that provocative, no matter the gender, if that makes sense. But this is a pattern that we see with other men who also have experienced sexual abuse by their mothers, by their grandmothers, by their aunts, by their nieces and whatnot, and all these things. Because, there are a lot of pedophiles in the family. There are just a lot of, pedophiles in the family that don't know how to keep their hands to themselves and don't know what a boundary is and will do anything they can to try to cross a boundary so they can justify themselves. And that actually turns into, a lot of these young men, boys, being as actually abused by, women in the family. Women in the family, women in the church, if you grow up around the church. And that eventually starts to shape the sexual orientation and shape the sexual attraction of the man. And most men think that they just like what they like because they like what they like. But it's actually the way that you like what you have always been exposed to your entire life. And when I just, I sat in therapy, I had 8 months of EMDR therapy to undo all the damage that they have done, my narcissistic parents have done to me. I went to psychotherapy. I went to EMDR therapy. I went to, cognitive behavior therapy. That's also the reason why I can call out abuse, because now my mind is sober. My mind is no longer, torn up or broken down or distorted by lies and manipulation and, emotional fogginess. And you will be amazed if you have received EMDR therapy, how much mentally clearer you are the moment you process all these things and get all these negative traumas and emotions out of your body. You'd be amazed. And when I start to, my EMDR therapy, a lot of traumatic memories and events came to the surface. And one of these memories that I always knew was like very strange and odd, and I always tried to press that away, was that I have also been sexually molested by my own mother. And I always try to justify things like, yeah, but she didn't know what she was doing. No, she did know what she was doing. She was fucking 45. She was fucking 47. She was 50. She was fucking 55. She knows. And it's not only about the touching, it's about sexualizing, me in general. Because, her man was away, so she needed a replacement. And she always thought that her son would do. Because she has a fetish for light-skinned children, because she wants to be black, but she cannot be black, but she can participate in, a multicultural, multi-ethnic, household, and act as if she's black, saying that, well, I'm married to a black man, so I contribute to something of the black culture. She can do that if you feel very, very free. A tad too comfortable, in my opinion, with that bullshit. But that's what they do. That's what they do. And it shapes, because I think to this day, the reason why I choose to be celibate is because I simply don't trust people, because I have also been violated. And there's still a huge stigma and still a huge issue with men speaking about the fact that they have been sexually molested, that they have been, sexually abused, and especially when it's about family members, and especially when it's about their own parents, because there are also a lot of men who have been sexually molested by their own fathers, because they are closeted homosexuals. But that's for another video. I want to talk about why women do this. Why do women sexually molest their son? And we have to there again talk about narcissism. We have to talk about the narcissism and the narcissistic personality disorder that even contributes and amplifies the belief that these women can just do to their sons whatever they can do because they are their mother. And narcissistic parents, if there's one thing they're absolutely obsessed with, is this term. I am your, fill in the gaps, your mother, your father. And for them, in their mind, because they externalize their identity onto other people and how other people should behave and perceive them, they think it's normal. They think it's justifiable. They think it's, something that they can just throw around and be like, well, I just said that I'm your mother and this is just normal behavior, so I would just leave it like that. That's like the first thing, or the first operating system, why they do what they do, because they absolutely believe, and they are of the conclusion, that whatever they are participating in is normal and healthy because they feel entitled to your body. Like this should definitely, if it's about a man doing it to his own daughter, we're like, oh wow, well, kill the man, what not. But because we live in this time of like feminazis and feminism bullshit, we don't blink an eye, and we even going to guilt trip and blame the victim, blame the man, like, okay, but why are you making such a big fuss out of it? At least you got your first experience with a woman. But that's just a very fucked up and twisted way to, do and perceive that. That's just fucked up. And the reason why narcissistic women sexually molest their sons is because narcissistic mothers, their entire validation is dependent on another man. If you noticed, a lot of narcissistic women are obsessed with men. They're obsessed with male approval. They're obsessed with, being looked and being seen, being heard, being felt, being touched, being thought about, being sexualized by other men. It's always about other men. It's never about, okay, well, I have a healthy view about myself. They don't have a healthy view about themselves because their entire identity is attached to how they are being perceived by other men. So the moment they're going to get a son, she instinctively knows, like, okay, well, one day he's going to become a man. One day he's going to become a man. And the moment the boy starts to get into puberty and whatnot, she is going to insert herself in a sexual way and sexualize her son. It first starts with, complimenting her son in ways that is just just inappropriate. Calling your son handsome is one thing, but sexualizing your son and sexualizing body parts of your son is just not a great thing. That's why I don't like single mothers. I don't like that. I get a very eerie, creepy vibe with that, because there's a tendency for a lot of single mothers with their sons that they will eventually start to sexualize their son because they need male validation, especially if they have narcissistic personality disorder. And when they have narcissistic personality disorder, they're going to treat the son as if the son is her now husband, and she's going to put her son in a position that he needs to be the caretaker of her and the house and the breadwinner, even though the son actually needs a father and a male figure in his life to even show to him what it actually is. And he doesn't get the chance because narcissistic women tend to come across as very attention seeking, domineering, emotionally intense, very self-absorbed, very self-destructive. But not only that, they tend to be like very domineering and constantly want to provoke attention in that sense, if you know what I'm saying. So they're going to take it out on their sons as if their sons are their first or second husbands. She's constantly boy toying around and whatnot, and she's treating her son as if, he is her husband. And what belongs to having a husband is touching your husband in a way that only should be when they are married. So she's going to touch her son inappropriately because she cannot help herself, because she needs sexual validation from a man. And her son is a man. So she feels the need to actually justify and gratify herself by doing what she wants. And she's going to do that because it satisfies her needs that she can get sexual attention from any type of man, even if it's their own son. Because narcissists don't have boundaries. Narcissists cannot distinguish between this is healthy, this is normal and whatnot. So she's going to do it. And a lot of narcissistic mothers actually do this, and then they tell, the sons from very early on, or since they were a child, like, this is just normal behavior. Other women are doing it too. I am your mother, and this is just normal. So the boy thinks, well, this is just what mothers do, until the boy starts to get around with other boys, and the moment they have their boy chatter and whatnot and start to speak up, they come to the realization, like, wait a minute, this is actually not normal. And then they realize that they have been violated. But we all know why men cannot speak up about sexual violation or being sexually violated. So what happens? The woman keeps on doing this. The mother keeps on doing it to her own son. And this is where things turn badly, because the son thinks that this is normal, so he's going to project that onto other men or other women. He's going to do that. And then we blame the lack of fatherhood, the lack of men, but it's the women making their sons like that by parentifying him, sexualizing him, and then making it seem as if it's just normal, because children don't learn by what is quote unquote normal. They learn by repetitive behavior and repeated behavior, thoughts and words and whatnot. They learn by affirmations. They learn by what they have been exposed to. So the moment, the boy only gets exposed to like sexual abuse, sexual molestation by their own mothers, they think that because their mother did it to him, he can now do it to other people as well, because that's how he has been raised. And that's the issue with narcissistic women narcissistic women and how they actually groom their child, groom their boys to become, what we now know as like rapists and all these things. That's what they do. That's what they do. And we immediately want to blame other men, but we don't look at the upbringing of these men in general, that it really is his own mother doing that stuff. We don't want to talk about that. But this is something that happens especially in the black community, because we all know that many, people in the black community, like women in the black community, they have difficulty growing up, getting a proper relationship with a proper man, with, a well-seasoned man and whatnot. So what is she going to do? She's going to fuck around. She's going to get a baby with a random man. And then she has the baby, which she on one hand doesn't want, and on the other hand she does want. And then the boy grows up, and then she starts to sexualize him as if he is now her husband. This is a repeated behavior over and over and over again. And that's why they do it. And that's called narcissistic personality disorder, because she feels entitled to. She feels entitled to do all these things. And that's the reason why they do it and why it's so toxic. So I hope we can open this discussion and learn from this and realize that, there are also male victims as well. They may not always, loudly speak up. And I may even, like with this live session or whatnot, I may get like hatred for what I'm saying and all these things. Okay, fine. I'm okay with that. But this is something that does happen. It does happen, and we need to have an open discussion, and we need to be able to talk about it, because a lot of boys, they're being sexually molested by their own mothers, because narcissistic women cannot differentiate between their boy toys, their fuck buddies, and their own sons. We need to have a proper discussion and conversation about it. If y'all like this, live session and video and whatnot, I would definitely make a part 2, because I'm planning to make more content about, family matters, personality disorders, and family dynamics and all these things. So if you like the content that I'm creating and whatnot, you can subscribe to my channel. And if you really want to help me out and whatnot, you can donate for Buy Me a Coffee, or, PayPal me. Like, the link will be down below in the description and all these things. And, if you've always struggled with the things that we're actually just talking about in this channel, like on this channel, you can buy one of my digital neurotherapies. There will be like a link down below, because I cannot, enable my links yet. But I can, put them in the comment sections and whatnot. And then you can buy my digital neurotherapy that is designed to actually train the brain and heal the mind to actually cure itself and fix itself from narcissistic abuse. So thank you very much for listening, and I will see you in part 2. Thank you.